If you were standing in the crowd at the Newport Folk Festival in July of 2022, you likely witnessed something that, medically speaking, probably wasn't supposed to happen.
Not at all. I mean, it was billed as Brandy and Friends, right? It was a surprise.
A total surprise. You have Brandy Carlisle on stage doing her set, and then they bring out a chair. But not just any chair. This ornate, almost throne-like Louis XIV style armchair.
Which is a bit of a clue that royalty is arriving, a legend.
Exactly. And out walks a woman who hadn't performed a full set in public in over 2 decades. A woman who, just 7 years before, had been found unconscious on her floor, unable to speak, unable to walk.
Suffering from a brain aneurysm rupture that most doctors, I think, assumed would be a career-ending, if not life-ending, event.
And yet there she was, Joni Mitchell. And she wasn't just waving to the crowd. She picks up a guitar and plays an instrumental solo.
That moment, it just broke the internet. It broke the hearts of everyone watching, and it forced this massive reevaluation of someone who we already considered a legend.
It did. And today, I don't want to just talk about the miracle comeback. I really want to dig in and understand the specific mechanics of the person who pulled it off. Because when you look at the stack of research we have here, the biographies, the articles, her own archive, this isn't just a story about a folk singer.
No, it's a story about a painter derailed by circumstance. That's her own description of herself, and I think it's the key.
The key to everything.
It is. If you view her entire life through that lens, that she is a visual artist who just happened to use sound as her paint, as her medium, everything else just clicks into place.
It's arguably the only way to understand her. So today we're doing a deep dive into the life and work of Roberta Joan Anderson, born in Fort Macleod, Alberta, back in 1943. And to understand how she became Joni Mitchell, the icon who reshaped the emotional landscape of the 20th century. We have to start with the first time her body betrayed her.
You're talking about polio.
I am. It's so hard for us to grasp now, but in the early 50s, this was the terror of every parent in North America. The polio epidemic was raging.
And Joni contracted it at age 9. This wasn't a mild case either. She was hospitalized for weeks in a dedicated polio ward.
Can you even imagine Christmas in a hospital ward, hearing her family outside caroling but not being able to see them? That's a story she's told.
It was a crucible. The isolation was one thing, but physically the disease ravaged her left side. And specifically for our story, it left her with a significantly weakened left hand.
Yeah, this is the first just pivotal what-if moment in her story. Because usually if you want to play guitar, your left hand is the engine room. It's everything.
Right. You need immense dexterity and strength in that hand to clamp down the strings to the fretboard, especially for what we call bar chords.
Explain that for people who don't play.
A bar chord is where you have to use your index finger to press down all 6 strings at once, like a clamp, while your other fingers form the rest of the chord shape. It's one of the first big hurdles for any new guitarist. It takes strength.
And 9-year-old Joni Mitchell, post-polio, simply couldn't do it. Her hand would not cooperate.
So conventional logic says, switch instruments, go play the piano. Or just stick to painting, which she was already good at.
Her mother actually hated the idea of the guitar, didn't she?
Yeah.
She associated with hillbilly music, with cowboys. She saw it as sort of beneath her daughter.
She did. But Joni was stubborn. And this is where that painter mindset kicks in. If the tool you're given doesn't work the way it's designed, you don't abandon your art. You change the tool.
So what did she do?
Since she couldn't make her hand form the standard chords, she started messing with the tuning pegs on the head of the guitar. She just started twisting them.
This is the birth of the famous Joni's weird chords.
That's it. Most guitars are tuned to what we call standard E. It creates a specific tension on the neck, and all the chord shapes we know are based on that tuning. Joni threw that rulebook out.
She retuned the strings into what are called open tunings.
Basically, she would loosen and tighten the strings so that if she just strummed the guitar without touching the neck with her left hand at all, it already played a beautiful, full, complex chord, a G major or a D modal or something completely unique to her.
Which is just brilliant physics when you think about it. It shifted the labor, instead of her weakened left hand having to do all the work of creating the harmony.
The guitar itself was already doing the work. The harmony was built into the tuning. All she had to do was use maybe 1 or 2 fingers to slide a simple shape up and down the neck to change the pitch.
It also did something else to the sound, too, right? Because she was often tuning the strings down, making them slacker.
Exactly. The guitar resonated differently. It had more give. It created this drone-like ringing quality that didn't sound like the percussive choppy folk strumming of the era. It sounded more like a pedal steel guitar or even a sitar. It was liquid.
It effectively prevented her from playing cliches. I mean, she couldn't play a standard GCD folk progression if she wanted to because her guitar wasn't built for it anymore.
She was forced to be original. She ended up inventing something like 50 different tunings over her career. 50!
That's astounding.
She called it her state of expecting nothing. She would just sit with the guitar, twist the pegs until the sound matched an emotion she was feeling, and then she would find the song inside that tuning. It meant she was painting with colors nobody else even had on their palette.
So you have this girl in small-town Saskatchewan, recovering from polio, secretly reinventing one of the world's most popular instruments in her bedroom. At the same time, she's an indifferent student.
Oh, terrible. She was failing classes, she was drawing all over her homework, she just didn't fit into the rigid structure of school.
But there was one teacher.
An English teacher named Arthur Kratzman. He was the one who saw her. He looked at her poetry and told her, "If you can paint with a brush, you can paint with words." And that line stuck with her for her entire life.
It's the whole thesis statement again. But she still saw herself primarily as a painter. She went off to the Alberta College of Art in Calgary, fully intending to be a visual artist.
And this is where the story takes a turn that was kept secret for decades. We have to talk about what she called the secret sorrow.
Because in 1964, being an unmarried, pregnant woman in our school was not just difficult. It was, social suicide.
It was a huge scandal. She's 20 years old. She became pregnant by an ex-boyfriend, a guy named Brad McMath, who essentially vanished to California as soon as he found out.
So she's completely alone. It's Calgary. It's freezing. And she's trying to hide this pregnancy from her parents, from everyone. She drops out of school.
And moves to Toronto. She heads for the Yorkville neighborhood, which was the bohemian folk music center of Canada at the time. But she is absolutely destitute. She has no money, no support.
And in February of 1965, she gives birth to a baby girl, Kelly Dale Anderson, in a charity hospital. And I think it's important to sit with this moment. She didn't want to give her up. She really tried to keep her.
She did. She even married a folk singer named Chuck Mitchell, which is where she got the last name, in what seems to have been a sort of marriage of convenience, hoping it would allow her to provide a stable home for the baby.
But the marriage was rocky from the very beginning, and they were still broke. She felt she had no other choice.
So she placed the baby for adoption, and for decades the public narrative was just Joni Mitchell, the free-spirited Laurel Canyon folk singer. But underneath all of that, there was this massive, unhealed wound.
It's the engine of her songwriting, isn't it? I mean, that grief, that loss.
She has said explicitly that the songwriting began in earnest after she lost her daughter. It was the only way she could process the grief and the guilt. It was her confessional.
And it's right there in the music if you know where to look. The song, Little Green, from the Blue Album, is a direct letter to that child.
Child with a child pretending weary of lies you were sending home. So you sign all the papers in the family name. You're sad and you're sorry, but you're not to shame. It's just devastatingly direct.
It completely changes how you hear her entire early catalog. All that melancholy isn't just an aesthetic choice. It's specific. It's rooted in this profound trauma.
And she wouldn't reunite with her daughter, who was renamed Killoran Gibb, until 1997. That's over 30 years of carrying that ghost.
And carrying it while becoming one of the most famous and scrutinized women on the planet.
An incredible burden.
So let's look at that ascent. She's in Detroit with Chuck Mitchell for a bit, but that marriage falls apart by 1967. She heads to New York, but the big break happens in Florida.
Of all places, right. The Gaslight South Club in Coconut Grove, Florida. David Crosby, who had just been kicked out of the Byrds and was at the peak of his influence, walks in one night.
And you have to imagine the scene. Crosby was folk rock royalty. He had the cape, the mustache, the whole persona. He's seen everyone.
And he sees this unknown woman on stage playing these strange, open-tuned chords, singing like a bird with this incredible range, and he is just floored, completely stunned.
He describes it as being stunned by her. He basically adopts her artistically. He brings her back to Los Angeles, specifically to Laurel Canyon, which was fast becoming the absolute epicenter of the music world.
He did something very smart, though. He produced her first album, Song to a Seagull, but he intentionally barely produced it. He just set up the microphones and told her to play.
Why?
He knew that if he added a rock band, drums, electric guitars, she would sound like everyone else. He wanted to capture that weird, resonant, unique guitar sound we were talking about. He wanted to capture her.
And it worked. Almost immediately, she becomes the songwriter. Before she's even a major star herself, other people are having hits with her songs.
Judy Collins has a massive hit with both sides now. Tom Rush records The Circle Game and Urge for Going. Fairport Convention covers her. She was feeding the entire folk rock ecosystem.
But by 1969, with the album Clouds, and then especially 1970 with Ladies of the Canyon, she is the star. She's not just writing for others, she's writing the anthems for her generation.
Big Yellow Taxi becomes this huge environmental anthem. The Circle Game defines that feeling of time passing. And then there's Woodstock,
Which is still my favorite piece of Joni Mitchell trivia. She wrote the definitive song of the Woodstock Festival.
and she wasn't even there.
Not even close. She was stuck in a hotel room in New York City watching it on the news.
Her manager, David Geffen, didn't want her to get stuck in the mud and miss a big TV appearance on the Dick Cavett show the next day. She was furious about it, crying in the hotel room.
But it was a blessing in disguise, wasn't it?
I think so. Because she was watching it on a screen, she captured the idea of Woodstock, the utopian dream of stardust and golden, rather than the gritty reality, which for many people was mud and bad acid and logistical chaos. She wrote the myth, not the documentary.
But then the 60s end. The dream curdles a bit. The whole Laurel Canyon scene starts to get darker. And in 1971, she retreats and releases Blue. Now, we hear Blue today and we just think all-time classic album. But at the time, this was shockingly raw.
It was uncomfortable for a lot of people. You have to compare it to what the men were doing. Led Zeppelin, the Rolling Stones, it was all posture. It was I am a golden god. They were projecting power, mystery, and sexual bravado.
And Joni Mitchell went the complete opposite direction.
Yeah.
She projected absolute radical fragility.
There's that famous quote she gave. She said making that album made her feel like a cellophane wrapper on a pack of cigarettes.
Absolutely no secrets from the world. She said she had no defenses left. She was writing about her own selfishness in relationships, her bad choices, her deep, deep longing.
Chris Christopherson, who was a friend, reportedly listened to the album for the first time, and his reaction was, Joni, save something for yourself. It felt too personal, too exposed.
It's the ultimate confessional album. And it worked. It connected on a level that was almost terrifyingly deep. But then she does something that I think defines her career more than anything else.
She runs from it.
She hits her absolute commercial peak with Court and Spark in 1974. It hits. #1 on the charts, she has radio hits like Help Me and Free Man in Paris. And instead of riding that wave, she burns the surfboard.
Yes is the jazz pivot, and it is so fascinating because it wasn't just a stylistic change, it was an act of rebellion against the pop format itself.
She was bored.
Completely bored. She found the verse-chorus-verse structure of pop music too confining. She said it was like a coloring book. She wanted the music to be as complex and abstract as her painting.
So she starts moving in that direction. But the fans were not ready.
They were confused. When she released The Hissing of Summer Lawns in 1975, the critics just hated it. Rolling Stone called it the worst album title of the year and basically said she was trying too hard, that it was pretentious.
She was doing things that were so ahead of their time. She was using samples, actual field recordings of African drummers on the song The Jungle Line. Years before that was a normal production technique. She was moving away from melody and into pure texture and atmosphere.
And she didn't apologize. She didn't retreat back to pop. She just drove deeper. And I mean that literally. She got in her car and drove solo cross-country, and that trip is what gave us the album Hejira in 1976.
For me, Hejira is the masterpiece. It's the synthesis of everything.
I agree. And it brings us back to the guitar, but also to a new collaborator. She met the bass player Jaco Pastorius, who was playing with the jazz fusion band Weather Report. And Jaco played a fretless bass.
Which means he could slide between notes, just like her voice, and just like her open tunings on the guitar, there were no frets to lock him into a specific note.
Exactly. They were sonic soulmates. The way his bass weaves around her guitar and voice on tracks like Coyote or the title track Hejira, it's not a rhythm section, it's a conversation. It's swirling. It creates this incredible sense of constant motion, of the road unfolding in front of you.
But it was difficult music. It demanded your attention. It wasn't something you just put on the background. It was challenging.
And it was challenging for the casual Big Yellow Taxi fan. She was absolutely shedding her pop audience, but she was gaining the respect of the jazz giants.
I mean, you can't get much bigger than Charles Mingus.
One of the absolute gods of jazz bass and composition. And he calls her up. He's dying of ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, And he wants her, Joni Mitchell, to write lyrics to his final compositions.
That is a massive, massive validation from a world she was trying to enter.
It's the ultimate validation. But the resulting album, Mingus, released in 1979, was her commercial nadir. It was the first time in a decade that one of her albums didn't sell 500,000 copies. The press called her pretentious, fans were just baffled, but she felt she was sitting at the table where she belonged.
We have to pause here, though, because this experimental era also contains the single most controversial moment of her entire career, and that's the cover of the 1977 album Don Juan's Reckless Daughter.
Yes, and we need to look at this very clearly. On the album cover, there are several figures depicted. One of them is a black man in a pimp-style suit and hat. That character is Joni Mitchell.
And this isn't just a smudge of dark makeup on her cheek. It is a full prosthetic transformation. She is wearing full blackface.
It is. She created this alter ego she called Art Nouveau. Her explanation at the time was that she was inspired by a man she saw walking down the street in Hollywood, and she wanted to inhabit his spirit for a Halloween party.
Now, obviously today this is widely viewed as racist and deeply offensive. There's really no debate about that.
None at all. But what's complex about it is that she has never apologized for it.
She defended it as late as 2017, right?
She did. In interviews, she said things like she felt she had no soul as a white woman and was trying to inhabit a spirit she admired. It ties back to that outsider psychology we mentioned earlier. She felt alienated from her own identity.
But it is crucial to note that something changed very recently. In 2024, the cover art on streaming services like Spotify was quietly changed. The blackface image is gone, replaced by a different photo of Joni with a dog from the same photo shoot.
With no official announcement. Which suggests that while she might not have publicly backed down, her estate or her record label recognizes that the image is indefensible today. It's a very complicated part of her legacy that fans have to grapple with.
Okay, so moving out of that very experimental and controversial period into the 80s, the sound changes again. She marries the bassist Larry Klein, moves to Geffen Records, and we get the synth years.
The 80s were a tough decade for a lot of 60s and 70s icons, and the album Dog Eat Dog in 1985 is very, very heavy on the synthesizers and drum machines.
She worked with Thomas Dolby, the She Blinded Me with Science guy.
She did, and by her own admission, it was a friction-filled production process. She felt the technology was stripping the humanity and the organic feel out of her work. She later said, "It wouldn't really be my music."
But something else was happening at the same time, something physiological. Her voice was changing. And not just a little bit.
No, it was a dramatic drop. She went from that crystal clear, almost angelic mezzo-soprano, think of the high notes in Woodstock, to a husky, deep, smoky contralto.
Now, the easy answer for that is cigarettes. She has been a famously heavy smoker since she was a teenager.
One of the world's last great smokers, as she's been called, and that's certainly a big part of it. But she also had recurring vocal nodules, compressed larynx, and she believes the lingering effects of post-polio syndrome, which can affect muscle tone everywhere in the body.
But here is the genius of Joni Mitchell again. She didn't fight it. She didn't try to sound like her younger self. She adapted. She reorchestrated her own songs to fit her new instrument.
Her voice became a new instrument.
The prime example of this has to be the album Both Sides, now from the year 2000, where she re-recorded some of her old songs and some standards with a full orchestra.
If you listen to the original 1969 version of Both Sides, now it's a young woman, maybe 25 years old, guessing at what life is like. I've looked at life from both sides now. It's wistful and it's pretty.
But when you listen to the 2000 version, sung by a woman in her late 50s with that smoky, weathered, lived-in voice, it is absolutely devastating.
She isn't guessing anymore. She knows. She has lived through the illusions of love and the reality. It transforms the song from a lovely folk fantasy into a profound memoir.
It really does. And that seemed like it might be the final act of her career. She announced she was retiring from music. She was very angry and disillusioned with the music business.
And then the health issues really began to mount.
In 2009, we started hearing about Morgellons disease,
which is a very controversial diagnosis. It's a skin condition where sufferers feel fibers growing out of their skin. The general medical consensus is that it's often psychological, a form of delusional parasitosis.
But for Joni, the suffering was very real, whatever the cause. She described it as feeling like she was being eaten alive from the inside out. She withdrew almost completely from public life.
And then the silence really fell, March 31st, 2015.
A brain aneurysm rupture. She was found unconscious in her home in Los Angeles.
The prognosis was incredibly bleak. I mean, we aren't just talking about she needed some rest. She lost the ability to speak. She lost the ability to walk. For a time, she couldn't even sit up in a chair.
And of course, the guitar was gone.
Completely gone. The aneurysm took away all those complex, refined motor skills she had spent a lifetime developing, starting with overcoming polio. For years after that, there was very little news. We just sort of assumed she was living out her days in quiet medical care.
But inside her house in Laurel Canyon, something remarkable was happening. The Joni Jams.
This is the most beautiful part of the whole story, I think. Brandi Carlile, the singer-songwriter who grew up just worshiping Joni, started reaching out.
She wanted to bring music back into Joni's life.
But not as a performance, not as pressure, as therapy, as community. So they started having these regular living room hangouts.
And just look at the guest list for these hangs. It's unreal.
It's insane. Paul McCartney, Elton John, Harry Styles, Herbie Hancock, Chaka Khan, the absolute A-list of music from every generation.
And they would just sit in her living room, drink wine, and play songs for her.
At first, Joni just sat and listened. She would tap along. She couldn't really sing yet.
It must have been intimidating for them. Can you imagine playing a Joni Mitchell song in her living room in front of Joni Mitchell?
Terrifying. But it was an act of love, and that love was the medicine. Slowly, she started to hum along. Then she started to sing a few lines.
And then the impossible happened. She wanted to play the guitar again, but she couldn't remember how.
This is the detail that just gets me every time. She had to watch old videos of herself on YouTube to relearn.
She had to watch her own hands on a screen to decode her own invented tunings.
Yeah.
The muscle memory had been completely wiped by the aneurysm.
So she had to build it back from zero. It was pure neuroplasticity in action. Her brain had to forge brand new pathways. It's a medical miracle.
Which brings us all the way back to where we started, Newport, 2022.
The surprise set, she walks out, she's singing, her voice is low, it's rich, it's authoritative. But then she picks up that Parker Fly electric guitar for the instrumental, Just Like This Train.
And she shreds.
In her own unique, melodic way, yes. She finds the groove. The look on Brandi Carlile's face in the videos from that day says everything. She is just weeping, holding her hand to her mouth because she knows how hard Joni worked for those 3 minutes of playing.
It wasn't a nostalgia act. It was a resurrection, a statement of survival.
And it completely recontextualized her for a whole new generation. Suddenly, she wasn't just the lady from the 70s who wrote Big Yellow Taxi. She was a warrior. She was this incredible symbol of resilience.
And it just kept going. She headlined the Gorge Amphitheater in 2023, a 3-hour set.
And then she performed at the Grammy Awards for the first time ever in 2024.
Wait, that can't be right. First time ever.
It's true. She had won 11 Grammys over her career, but she had never once performed on the broadcast until she was 80 years old, sitting in that throne-like chair singing Both Sides Now.
That's unbelievable. It was a victory lap like no other.
It was, and it's so wonderful to see her getting her flowers while she is still here to smell them. You see her influence everywhere now.
Oh, it's unavoidable. Taylor Swift references her constantly in her lyrics and her attitude. Prince was a massive fan. He covered A Case of You. Harry Styles, Lord. The list is endless.
Even Led Zeppelin. The song Going to California is famously about their shared crush on Joni Mitchell. Madonna cited her as the first female artist who really spoke to her. She worshipped Court and Spark.
And yet, she never fit neatly into any box. She wasn't just a folk singer. She wasn't just a jazz musician. She even refused the label feminist, right?
She did. She famously said she didn't want to be in a posse against men. She wanted to go toe-to-toe with them on an artistic level. She just wanted to be judged as a great creator, not a great female creator.
And I think it's safe to say she won that battle.
Without a doubt. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Kennedy Center Honor, the Gershwin Prize.
Yeah.
She's got them all.
You know, for a painter derailed by circumstance, she managed to paint a pretty massive, unforgettable canvas.
She certainly did. And I want to leave you with one final thought, one quote that I think just sums up her entire psychology. Joni has been working on a memoir for years, and she told a reporter that the opening line of that book, the very first sentence, is going to be this: I was the only black man at the party.
Oh, wow.
It's provocative, it's controversial, and it's incredibly complicated, just like her. But what she means by it is that she always felt like the other. When she was in the folk scene, her chords were too fancy, too jazzy. When she moved into jazz, the purists said she was just a pop singer slumming it. She was always the outsider, observing the room, never fully part of the hub.
And that distance.
That distance is where all the art came from.
If you want to hear that distance and that profound beauty, go listen to the album Hejira today. Just put it on and drive.
It's the best road trip companion you will ever have.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.